All right, Quentin, back
Yeah.
again with another episode of the Nervous System Training Podcast. All right, so this week we're going to be going over some footage of some different training styles. I have some footage of my own nervous system training that we'll incorporate. And for anyone watching, if you have questions, leave it in the comments. Send them to us at Nervous System Training Podcast on Instagram or Nervous System Training Podcast at gmail.com. Also, feel free to share clips of your own training, and we'll add them to our queue as we have space for it. All right, so we talked about it a little bit just before the call, but let's jump in with Israel Adesanya. He's doing some David Goggins training. I know Tony Ferguson did this a few fights back for him. It didn't work too well in his favor, but he's also on a huge losing streak, so there's a lot else going on. But yeah, let's start with that. It's something that's going on, and I'm curious what you think of the intensity of the training and how that will impact his nervous system come fight time.
Okay. Could you, is it possible to just pull up some background footage of David Goggins working with Izzy? I'll kind of go in on what I've seen so far. I haven't seen a whole lot. It's kind of just been like a trending idea right now, but
Yeah, you can scroll through some different ones. Here we go, though.
yeah, so well, what I do know about David Goggins is that he's obviously a very inspirational character, a really inspirational guy, right? You know, he's a former Navy SEAL. He's kind of part of like the vetfluencer type movement that's going on with like Jocko Willink and Tim Kennedy. A lot of these like former tier one operators that are developing like online businesses with the skills that they came up through the military, which I think is cool. You know, I subscribe to a lot of these guys. They're really, I really like them. And I even like, Goggins. I think Goggins is a really cool, inspirational guy. He obviously is a really hard worker. He's accomplished tremendous many challenges throughout his life. But I do think it's interesting that some of these fighters are kind of gravitating towards him, in particular with where their career is at. That's what I kind of noticed first, and I understand Izzy is not quite performing the way he used to as of late, correct?
Yeah, I mean, he was the best in the world, and I think he's lost his last two fights, maybe three now.
Okay, so he's kind of on a losing streak. Now, I've looked at Israel's training in the past before this, and I didn't see anything very impressive with his training or necessarily a philosophy of training that was super effective. Israel is kind of one of those, he kind of has that neuromuscular dominance, where his physicality is so good, his genetic baseline is so good that he can kind of do any sort of training and still perform at a really high level. Those type of athletes exist, and I do believe Israel is kind of on the edge of those type of athletes. Now, that being said, as you get older, as you keep doing more unnecessary training or inappropriate training methodologies that I've seen Israel do, those will compound on top of each other. 1 week turns into 2 weeks turns into 4 weeks turn into 2 months, 2 months turn into a whole year. And that will start to reduce your performance over time. Now, there's a couple other things that I think about with Israel Adesanya. He kind of had like that gyno thing going on where one of his like tits was bigger than the other. Very suspicious. That kind of is a side effect of using performance enhancing drugs, manipulating like the endocrine system artificially. Now, he said it was because of marijuana, which I've never seen before. I've never heard about, seems kind of suspicious, seems kind of bullshitty. And that's also around the time Israel was pumping out his best performances. It's right around the time he was like a title holder or a title contender. And now he isn't quite performing the same. So when you look at this type of training that David Goggins really subscribes to, which it seems to be very long duration aerobic training, marathon training, Tough Mudder training, hybrid athlete training, which is not easy. This shit is not easy, but it's also not the same type of physics that MMA demands out of your body when you're fighting.
I was gonna ask about that. like David Goggins is an ultra marathoner, right? So he's got that gear that go forever, go for literally 100 miles pace. Um, do you think that if you were a fighter, would you be a little wary of training at that 100-mile pace when you're going for a 15 to 25-minute sprint in the cage max?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like, so think of this. Would you, if you had a sprinter, keep it really simple. If you have a sprinter, would you set him up with the world's best 1 mile coach?
Yeah, no, it's
It's
there's
not the
less
same.
overlap than you'd want.
Yeah. So I don't know why in MMA, I don't know where this comes from, where guys tend to think backwards with their training. Now, to me, to me this cries desperation. That's what I'm seeing out of this. That there's something about their bodies that's not performing the way they need it to. My prediction is from maybe substance abuse or years of compounded training that's not necessarily very optimal, that's starting to work against them. And combine that with age. It's like a multitude of things that kind of layer over each other. And then when you're starting to feel the decline, and this is what I talk about when I make these videos where people are, where like weightlifting slows you down, it creates too much tension. You need to do more plyometrics. You need to do more foot strengthening. Stop running in sand. When I go in on a lot of these things, there's a lot of people and a lot of coaches who say like my guys just did a whole sand workout, sprinting uphill in sand. They're still fast. Well, yeah, they are, because this doesn't happen. It doesn't happen just after one training session. This is a compound effect of many, many weeks, many, many months of certain type of stimulus hitting the body that's not lining up with the physical demand or the type of environment your body's going to experience in your sport. It adds up, but it takes time. The problem is it could take a long time. It could take maybe 2, 3, 4 years for this accumulation to start hitting a point of diminishing returns, where now the training is so compounded onto your system, you're not producing the same amount of force. You don't have the same kind of fluidity. You don't have the same recoil and footwork speed and endurance. And a lot of guys just chalk it up as getting older. Like, oh, you're just losing it. We need to do more. We need to do more intensity, more mental toughness. You're losing your edge. When in reality, I think it's just outdated training methodologies compounding onto their bodies, and they're declining faster than they should. So they go into desperation mode. They think that it's here, but really it's in the spine. It's not in the muscles, it's not in the brain, it's in their spine. The feedback, the stimulation that they're putting into their nervous system is not giving them the necessary adaptations. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
so what happens is that out of desperation, they start seeking these other specialists, that specialize in something that they think that they're missing mentally, but reality they're just missing it physically. So they get onto David Goggins. He obviously is a very tough guy. He's got an interesting reputation, of pushing guys, but doing long distance aerobic training, high mental taxing, slow twitch, dragging out processed workouts, that's not going to make you faster. That's not going to make you more powerful. That's not going to give you more reaction time. That's not going to give you the things you need to win UFC fights. So
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about emotional drive. That's the one potential advantage I could see with training from someone like David Goggins, who's just emotionally refined, I guess. I don't know what the right word is. Just beat
okay,
down and built back up.
yeah. Okay, so that's one pro out of all the cons that you can get is maybe you can instill stronger emotional drive. But here's the thing, is that you can emotionally drive, you can create emotional drive to anything. You can create it to computer software. You can put it into, like, watch James Cameron when he's directing movies. Like, he is a very intense director. He gets fucking pissed at everyone who screws up scenes. He demands a lot out of his actors. Same with Oliver Stone. Like, Johnny Depp almost quit on set filming for Platoon because he's like, bullshit, do better. Like you're faking it. Like you're supposed to pretend that you're dying. Like that's emotional drive. But it's only geared towards what you want to gear towards. So you can have all the emotional drive in the world, but if you only train that emotional drive for slow grinding twitch, you're fucked. That's not alone, that can't save you. Like you can have all the emotional drive in the world, but if that fist hits your skull, it's not going to be enough. You need a combination of all the right things.
Yeah. All right, it's kind of shifting gears a little bit. So this is kind of the opposite side of the spectrum. David Goggins is all the rah rah. This is a training system I like. It's called Foundation Training. This guy in the middle is Eric Goodman. He's the founder of it. But yeah, it's much. I was kind of explaining. It's very on the physical therapy side of the spectrum. It's all about getting the rib cage in a good position, restoring alignment, and these are the types of exercises. It's kind of like, I was describing it to one of my buddies as it's kind of like a Western philosophy type of yoga training where it's got like a system to it. But I'm curious, and then I'll show you some videos of myself doing nervous system training where I'm kind of combining some of these postures with the ball, like the water balls and stuff like that. But I'm curious, just in general, what you think of this type of training and where the place is in the routine for a fighter.
Okay. Go. Can you make the screen a little larger for me, and kind of jump around just so I kind of get more an idea of what his routine is, what he's trying to do here. Okay. So he's got some. So you got like some guys in a split stance, doing some like extension flexion movements.
It's all about getting that lumbar into extension.
Okay.
And kind of filling up the rib cage, expanding the. He calls like the rib cage an accordion. He tries to get.
Now, what's his goal with this?
I think the most common use case for it is low back injuries. So it's to restore alignment or to train your alignment. Olympians have used it. NFL players have used it. Fighters use it. The Ruotolo brothers. They're the jiu-jitsu guys. They're currently running this system. I hurt my low back trying to pull way too much when I was like 18 doing deadlifts, and so I've relied on systems like this to kind of maintain. If I don't do stuff like this, it creeps up on me.
Okay, I see what's going on. So this looks like a lot of muscle activation and a lot of what I call like neurological remapping, trying to get certain joint angles to stimulate certain muscles that feed into other muscles. Right? Like, so there's a wide base that he's having his guys stand in, which with the legs slightly bent, that's really good for activating the posterior chain and also getting the secondaries and primaries to contract together, getting the abduction and adduction muscles with the glute medius, glute minimus, glute max muscles to kind of fire up simultaneously. Now he's having them go into a back extension. So now he's trying to get those muscles to fire up with the lower back. Now, here's the thing. Does this work? Yeah. It obviously is working right in front of us. You obviously see all the muscles contracting, working together. Will this necessarily improve force generation for an athlete? I don't think so. I don't think that much. I think this is decent for overall health and longevity. It's not bad. What he's actually, okay, so this is sort of interesting. So when you do this really kind of forces like the serratus muscles to kick in. It creates protraction with like the scapula muscles. So you see how he's kind of going serratus, scapula forward, shoulder extension, scapula retraction. And if you look, there's a lot of this type of movement in the ball work, like with the swimmers, with the rotational trunk movements. So his body positioning, what he's having his athletes do, like, yeah, it's decent, like it's going to get those things activated. And they're in an isometric hold position. So It really makes it neurological because now you're having to hold different loads of shifting of like where the torso is going down, the lower back going into flexion, lower back going into extension. And if his goal is to just keep the body feeling better, keep the muscles a little bit more neurologically fired up with each other, I would say it's okay. Now, I don't, for a athlete, I don't think that this is that I don't think this is necessarily superior than say like the ball work methodology. I think that's going to force neurological drive and neurological adaptation into a much higher form of stimulus. So you'll get the results much faster. But if you just want to kind of just mess around with some movements, it kind of has like a yoga sort of influence to it. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's okay. I don't know if I was working with say like a UFC fighter and they had a very specific deadline of competition, I probably wouldn't have them do this because we get much more return on investment with something that's going to directly stimulate the result that they're looking for much faster because time is everything with athletes. You have to get them results as soon as possible because every day that goes by, if they're not getting better, they're stagnating or it's decaying. Does that make sense? That kind of like gives you an idea on it?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that
I'll
a
show you
kid
some.
or a dog?
That's my dog. That's Raz.
Oh, okay.
Um, there's a cat here too, which just I jumped onto my
Yeah,
chest a
yeah.
second ago. So yeah, this is. I didn't even think about it. I like to freestyle train. I'll do sets and reps and stuff, but I like to just kind of freestyle train. And this is the type of stuff I've found myself doing freestyling. It's basically combining your balls with the foundation training. It'll load. I don't know why it's not loading.
We got a technical issue going on.
Technical issue.
Okay, well, maybe give it a chance. Give it a chance to buffer, But we're kind of going in more about what that guy is kind of working. Well, let me ask you this, Jake. You're working with it. Are you feeling a major difference within a couple of sessions?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, what are you feeling with it with this guy's routine?
It's in my low back. Like my tailbone gets super stiff, and it all just locks up. So it's feeling mobility in my lower back, and then when I'm doing jujitsu and stuff like that, that's the mobility in the lower back helps me move. That's kind of the center of everything. So, yeah, my
Okay,
hips when my back is tight, my hips get really stiff. My shoulder, like my one shoulder, will
yeah.
get sore.
Okay. Now another thing that I'm thinking about are the results lasting, or is this something you have to keep doing?
I do have to keep doing it, and yeah, especially if it's been a while since I've done it, I notice it.
Okay, so there's something interesting to think about. Because to me, at least what I like to gravitate towards is systems that have continuation in my body, even if I'm not doing it. Like there's some people that don't need to do anything to fix their lower back. Like their lower back is usually good, right? Now, why is that? Let's unpeel the layers. Why do you think that is?
I would say strong alignment and like good posture. That'd be my best
Okay.
answer.
So are some people just so okay? So strong alignment, good posture. All right. Uh, I think. How do I word this? I'm trying to think like how to like explain this properly. So I am not a huge fan of systems that you constantly have to keep doing like forever to get like a baseline result. I like systems that fix something at the root cause of the problem. You know?
Yeah.
So because when I see movements like these are good. These are good like activation movements. Like it gets certain muscle sequences to start activating with each other. But there's more going on. Like if you're experiencing lower back issues, there's also a strength issue going on. With something in your hips. There's something going on with your feet. There's something going on with the alignment of your pelvis, the pelvic floor, the deep stabilizers. And that's why when we work with people in person, and Mark Marinovich was coming up with a system, he had the athletic assessment. He had the muscular equilibrium test to start testing out different points of like flexion, extension, internal, external rotation to see where the strengths and weaknesses were. And when you fix the weaknesses, and it could be, weaknesses in your pelvis, like maybe your lower core is not very strong, so your pelvis wants to tilt backwards, puts the lower back into extension. It can create a lot of lower back agitation. So if you don't do the right exercises to correct that long term, then you're going to have to keep doing these routines forever and ever and ever instead of kind of fixing it at the source and really diagnosing exactly what is causing the problem. Because every issue that you have in your body is a strength or weakness issue. It's either it's a shortness or it's a length and maybe a muscle group. It's a strength or a weakness, one of those two. And if you can't identify it, then you're basically just shotgun blast training. That's what I call it, where you kind of hit your body with everything and hope something really sticks. Does that make sense? Instead of fixing the root cause of the problem. And sometimes the root cause of the problem could take a long time to fix, So with stuff like this, I think there's a lot of different takes on trying to create eustress. There's a lot of different ideas, and they're all working. They're obviously working. They're all selling. People are all getting results. But you gotta ask yourself, okay, is this going to give me permanent results, or is this going to be kind of like stretching? Like, how many times do I have to stretch until it's going to finally feel like I'm flexible again?
Yeah. I've noticed that with chiropractor. I went to a chiropractor a few times, and
that's a perfect example.
Are not durable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Like, okay, we're maintaining it. We're keeping up on the maintenance, but the problem keeps showing up again and again because there's something deeper going on with the body.
Yeah. All right, this video loaded. I'll just skim through some of the things.
Okay.
That was internal, external rotation, kind of at different points of the range of motion.
Oh yeah, that burns.
Yeah. I've got that baseball shoulder. Just doing both at the same time.
It's good.
Kind of holding that isometric.
Okay, doing some reactive holds with an ISO.
I like that 90-90 lunge hold a lot. I use that. That I always come back to that one with different exercises.
Yeah. So, do you want me to explain what's going on right here? What you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're holding this, and see if you can kind of loop this exercise a couple times for me.
Okay.
So what you're doing is when you're doing these split squat isometrics, is one, you're barefoot, which is great. Now you have a proprioceptive element to this. Number two is that now you're creating some sort of reactive elements. You're forcing the body to adapt into a strength position with external variables hitting your system simultaneously. So if you look at your legs, you look at your feet, you see all those little shifts, those little small shifts, in balance. And let's go back again. Let's look at it. So, and I want you to watch the feet, then watch the knees, and then watch the quads, and then watch the torso, like when the exercise starts. Now you'll see all these little micro adjustments happening. And then you kind of see it with the legs. See the knee position kind of has to shift a little bit. Then the quad position has to shift. So what you're doing is you're developing what's called reactive strength. And reactive strength, or it's labeled stability. But stability creates reactivity. Reactivity creates elasticity. Because now the muscle fibers, they're learning to contract like this. They'll hold on, then they'll separate, then they'll try to snap back. They say solid, but it's like a fluid solid. And so what you're doing is that when you work all that in, that information stays stored into the fascia. It stays stored into the neurological mechanisms. Like the spine remembers that. It stores the data for later. And so then when you're doing something like jiu-jitsu, right, and you're trying to hold a position, or maybe you're trying to break out of a guy's guard and you got to post your legs up and he's trying to shift you this way and you're trying to fight back, that's all reactive strength. most sports, especially contact sports, have a ton of reactive strength. Even like when in Muay Thai, like say when you're clinching someone, and they're pulling you one direction and you have to like go with it, then stabilize yourself and then like twist, you're doing all these motions while you're trying to implement like a strength base at the same time. And so now, does this look exactly like the same sort of thing you're going to see like in MMA? Not exactly. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to isolate a very specific mechanism that's happening all over the body when you're fighting that maybe is happening too fast for you to see. This actually is pretty good. I actually kind of I might play around with this. I might borrow some of these movements.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I love these. I've got this step here. I love these things too. So yeah, I'm losing
Okay, a
it.
little coordination footwork. So this is called low level plyo.
Yeah,
Low level plyo is really good for getting the calves and the stretch shortening cycle more active from the knees down, which is so important. Your calves are everyone focuses on quads and ass, which is great, quads, ass, and hamstring, but calves, foot, and ankle, in my opinion, is more important. Like I've worked with a lot of athletes who have insane foot strength, they have insane calf development, they have really good recoilability through the Achilles tendons, and their legs aren't so strong, their hips aren't so strong, hamstrings are a little underdeveloped. It doesn't matter, man. Those calves produce so much force, and they're so efficient. Like you can like how many squat jumps can you do compared to calf hops?
interesting.
Like 10x.
Yeah, yeah, I could do squat jumps forever. Have you know the
Well, you can do
the
squat jumps forever.
Maasai?
You can do calf hops forever.
I can do squat jumps forever. I mean, they'll gas me out, but the calf hops, it's um yeah. Do you know the Maasai tribe?
Yeah,
They
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like I tried those hops where it's basically max height on the jump and minimum time on the ground. And if I do 20 of those jumps, I'm smoked, like sweating. Um,
Okay, so that's interesting. So it could indicate that maybe your calves, your recoilability from the knees down is very underdeveloped or untrained. But let me give you another example. So like say you do like a squat jump, nothing crazy, not at maximum height, but at least like half flexion back up into the ground. Right? Most people can do that for like maybe like 20, 30, maybe 50, until it starts burning out.
yeah,
But if like a calf hop, like an example of like a normal calf hop is like jump roping. You can jump rope for minutes,
yeah.
minutes
I've
and
done.
minutes and minutes. You can do that for 20, 30 minutes at a time. The calves are super efficient muscle absorbers, kinetic energy absorbers, and recoilers. I call it. If you have really good developed foot, ankle, and calves, a lot of your movement, and efficiency comes for free. And actually, kind of looking at, I'll pause for a second. There's something I just saw that I could help you with there. Are we buffering?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so you can kind of tell like your coordination is still being developed in your feet,
Yeah,
and yeah.
it's a
So
fun way to
okay, but you
watch.
have the foot issues, right? You have like the major flat-footed issues.
Yeah, it's gotten better over the years, but it's still pretty bad. I had
Yeah,
a surgery on one of my feet, and I was scheduled for a surgery on the other. I opted out though.
yeah. You can see now. You see how like the force, like you're like when you hit the ground. Sometimes there's like that rattling, like
Yeah,
into the
I
ankle.
feel that. Yeah,
So what that means is that your knee, the muscles around your knee and your leg are kicking in to handle the kinetic energy because the load is feeling unsafe. Because your feet and your calves aren't handling it very well. So you're trying to get the primaries to kick in to help out a little bit. So what I would do right now, because this is pretty creative footwork. I like it. It's different. The pattern does seem complicated. Like you have to really concentrate on the footwork pattern. I would focus on just solid ground hops with no platform, like
uh,
jump roping without a jump rope,
yeah,
and just try to go for 5 minutes. It's going to be tough, but just hop and don't go for max height. Just, jump, dorsal flex, extend your feet, so you trigger the Achilles to kick in, and try to go for 5 minutes and then rest. And try to do that like every other day. Because that's what I would have you do. Like if you were like, say, like my client, I would have you just work on basic calf function and recoilability before I get you on advanced footwork drills. Because now, since we're having trouble absorbing kinetic energy, now we're at risk of a possible mechanical collapse, like an ankle sprain or something.
Right.
So in this, if my athlete was doing, if we were working together, slowly doing this, so okay, let's cut this off. Like we're not quite ready for this, and we're also over recruiting. We're really going to over recruit these knees. We're going to over recruit these hamstrings. So we're not quite ready for, because if I were to put you on, say, shock plyometric now, like big depth drops, boy, man, you'd be getting patella tendonitis in a couple weeks, because those calves are not helping enough. All that's going to hit your patella like hell. It's going to hit your ACL real hard, or that quadricep tendon really hard. So switch it up, calf hop or jump rope, 5 minutes straight. It's gonna kill. It's going to really, you're going to be sweating your ass off because your nervous system is going to have to really work overtime. But do that for 2 weeks, then return to your low-level plyometric. Watch what happens. It'll be like night and day. And then we have a better foundation underneath you to start getting into more advanced plyometrics. And your sprinting will increase, your footwork will, all that will increase, because your foot, ankle, and calves, those are the first things that have to interact with the ground. Oh, what do we got here? Okay, toe touchers with the balance pipes. That's interesting. That really shows neurological control, because if you touch that thing, it's gonna move.
Yeah. It's easy. It's harder to do it when it's straight like this.
Oh my God, man! Look at this.
Super sensitive.
Interesting.
A little off on the depth. So I had a knee surgery, and I've always felt like my depth, my feel for depth on my right foot isn't quite the same. You can see it. Usually, it's my right foot that catches. It's kind of dragging. It's a little low or something like that.
Right.
How many days a week are you doing the balance board training?
The balance.
The slant board.
Oh, the slant board.
It
varies. I've literally got my foot on my spinning slant board right now under my desk. But how many times I'm actually training?
Hard angles? What about like the hard angle slant? Maybe something that doesn't spin, like a little ramp.
So I'm like one or two. I've got my spinning one. That's the one I have at my house, and then the rest of the stuff I do like with my heel elevated on a weight at the gym or on a downhill slope when I'm out with my dogs.
Okay. So with your foot issues that's going on right now, you need to get on, I would say, less pipe work, slant board training every day.
Okay.
Every day. 60 seconds, north, south, east, and west angle, both feet. Then after you do that, 5-minute jump rope. Do that for 2 weeks. You're going to feel a huge difference. Because right now, you're kind of doing what a lot of guys do, is you're kind of jumping around a little bit. You're kind of jumping ahead on modalities. Everything is foundational. Like when I'm working with new guys, like we want, like ball work needs to be good, feet need to be strong, recoilability needs to be needs to be solid. Like we're not advancing nothing until you can do all those things, especially the recoilability, because that's the source of everything. And you'll start to see a lot of what you're kind of going through, and not to put any sort of like criticism on you, because you're just learning right now, which is great. But this is what I see a lot of guys do with training modalities, where they're lacking a specific thing, so they lean away from it without realizing it. They're kind of edging away from their weaknesses, and they want to work on stuff that maybe like a little bit more challenging, maybe leans into their strengths. It doesn't hit their ego quite as hard. And sometimes you can be doing this at the subconscious level. But you obviously know your feet are weak. You obviously know there's something going on the right foot, and you can feel that your ability to recoil off the ground is lacking. But you're not doubling down on the slant board and on like the calf hop movements. And you even said earlier that because it kills you, like it really drains you, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you kind of see how the human brain starts to like put things in place when we're left to our own devices without us realizing it?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the path of least resistance. We're efficiency machines. Like all living things want efficiency, maximum efficiency. That's why crocodiles spend most of their time just sitting in the sun with their mouth open, not doing anything.
That's
Like just conserving energy, trying to reduce energy expenditure as much as possible, finding the path of least resistance. And that's another thing about at that I would say that's another thing about the nervous system training that actually really affects a lot of athletes is that it forces you to hit those weaknesses and hit them hard, and that could be a huge hit on the ego. It can feel really debilitating. It can make you feel really weak and untrained, and it feels like, oh my God, is this going to injure me? You know, because it really takes a lot of energy out of you. And we naturally, like even me, I want to gravitate towards my strengths. Like I want to do things that involve like, you know, like my arms. I want to do things that involve my back, my chest. Like you know, the areas that are really strong and powerful. I like certain Muay Thai techniques that I gravitate toward. Like I like clinching and I like knees. I'm really good at those areas with lots of power. You know, but I kind of veer away from long distance kicking techniques. You know, it's something like I kind of lack because I got a little bit of flexibility issue with one of my hip flexors. So I really double down on like certain techniques that feel right for me. You know, and that's what a lot of guys do. And when you kind of get to pull yourself out of the comfort zone, that's why having a coach is so important because he'll pull you out of that comfort zone and he'll put you in deep waters that you don't like to be in. But you're only as strong as your weakest link. So this is so what you need to do, Jake. What you need to do is you need to I would double down more on the core and lower body ball work because your upper body seems really strong. I'm not gonna lie, like you seem like really well developed in the upper body. You can still work on it, but make sure the core, lower body ball work, you hit that really hard and make it look like really crispy. You know, that's not an easy task with some of those movements. And then focus on slant board training to get that foot arch strong, to get that plantar fascia nice and tight and thick, to get that forefoot connection, get that a lot stronger, you know, and to start getting these secondary muscles to start stabilizing with you to avoid an injury. And then I would do like jump rope or calf hops, you know, not going super high, just like 4 inches off the ground, just, you know, like this, jump up, point your toe, just over and just rebound. Try to go 5 minutes. That will change everything because those are your weak points. You fix that, lower back will feel a lot more efficient. You have way less lower back issues, less tailbone issues because right now your hips are probably compensating all your movements and all your jumping and all that because of your feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like rattling up the kinetic chain and it's rattling too hard in like the areas. So to me, when I saw the other guy that you were showing, to me, I think you know that's really that's interesting stuff. It's a kind of a cool way to hit the body positions, but is that fixing what's causing the problems? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the lens I look at things through. That's why Marv focused so much on the foot training. He was everything. You know, feet have to come first. You fix the feet, you start fixing the ankles. You fix the ankles, you start fixing the knees. You fix the knees, you start fixing the hips. So on and so forth. And then all of a sudden your training just exponentially increases. All your gains just start going through the roof really fast.
Let me throw one more at you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
This guy, he's definitely got some overlap with the things we've been talking with. Do you know this guy? Joel Seedman?
Right down.
I think I've seen some of his videos because that gym setup looks pretty interesting. Does he do like really weird unorthodox movements?
Yeah, a lot of like this is sort of a unilateral.
Yeah, this okay.
Yeah, he does. He works with NFL guys. I've seen a few, especially I think running backs. I think I've seen more running backs than any other position. So explosive, strong, powerful guys. It's a little different in football. You've got the 40-second game clock in between each play, so it's a little less endurance and a little more power than fighting and stuff. and I think
Yeah,
that
a
comes through
lot
in
more
his
power.
training. Yeah,
Yeah, show me
but
some. Let's see what this guy's up to.
look at his toes. You see how his toes are pointed in
Yep.
a little bit? What do you think about that in general?
It's his plantar fascia is too tight. His posterior tibialis. I think the inside gastric nemus muscle that connects to the big toe, it's not firing correctly. If you look at the guy's legs, you see how the outsides of his calves are really overdeveloped. It almost looks like he's getting bow-leggedness.
Yeah,
Yeah, so dorsiflexion on the outside is very deficient. Pinky toe's not working. Big toe foot arch is overworking, and that crosses from the big toe across the ankle into the outside of the calf. This guy is. This guy's gonna have some. This guy's gonna have some back issues, or he might already have some back issues. You know, so you can do all these things to help compensate, but until you fix those feet, dude, it's gonna rattle him down. He's gonna get kinetic leakage. He's gonna get overcompensation patterns, and it doesn't matter how much strength you put him through because we're not stopping it at the source. Oh yeah, a little eccentric loading,
yeah.
loading on back extension, taking it off. It's like the super cat.
Yeah, I was about to say poor man super cat.
Yeah. It's funny, you start seeing everyone is trying to do this now. Everyone is starting to catch on, but their tools are so limited.
It looks like this
Okay,
guy's.
so
It looks like he's trying to keep his toes in, like that guy Joel was doing in the previous video, but he can't. See how it's,
do you think maybe that's his strategy? Is he trying to get these guys to supinate?
I think so. I don't know the thinking behind it, but you can see this guy's right foot. Like he's trying to keep it, and then it rotates out right there. He
Yeah,
can't keep
so
it in.
I think I know the thinking behind this, and I've been seeing this more and more where these guys are really into these like isosceles type foot patterns with their lifts. You know, because we like when you ever watch babies learn how to walk, all babies are like kind of bow-legged in the beginning. Because like your IT bands, like your lateral connective tissue is really rigid, and it can hold a lot of your body. Like you'll see this with people with certain I can't remember the name of the diseases, but I remember a coach was explaining this because he worked with a lot of like handicapped people, you know, and he was saying like some people like they lose control of all their muscles, but their IT bands can still hold strength, and so they walk on the outsides of their feet with their knees kind of like pushing outwards, you know, and that is where we start sensing force is the outsides of our feet. When we first start walking, we don't usually walk on the insides of our feet. You look at babies, they walk on the outsides and they kind of lay in. Even when we're running or sprinting, outside of the foot makes contact with the ground and it rolls into the big toe. Right? So people are trying to work these isoscellating type angles. The only problem with that is that it's not addressing how your foot is being planted during sports activity, because now you're trying to get the heel involved. So now instead of being forefoot dominant, you're being flat foot dominant, pushing to the outside. Now, is that better than just being just flat footed? You know, to push this outside, these supination angles. Yeah, you see how he's trying to coil his legs and his feet inwards? Which I do think that, yeah, and he's slightly adding some rotation out of the torso, and he comes back, rotates out. You know, so they're trying to strengthen the spring because as we run like this. We're kind of like rotating like this. So I think this is better thinking. But will this necessarily make a huge difference? I don't think so. I'm not seeing the necessary stimulation. You know, I'm not. I think by identifying the weak links, improving force generation out of those weak links so they're not red flags anymore, that's going to have a huge improvement on their efficiency, on improving the rate of force development. Like power and strength is not everything. You want force development. How much pressure you can put into the ground and how quickly can you return that pressure, throwing you into a direction. And a lot of these movements don't enhance to the highest ability and to the highest efficiency on the stretch shortening cycle or your rate of force development. This is more like power development. And power is cool, but power is usually one explosive movement, like a vertical jump or hitting a baseball. Rate of force development is many, many, many contacts into the ground, generating force over and over and over and over again. And that's all of sports. You know, and I made a video to kind of demonstrate this, where you take take a cue ball and you bounce it on the ground, and it'll bounce, but then it loses kinetic energy fast because it can't store it very well. You take a rubber ball, like a bouncy ball, you hit it, it's going to bounce, 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 and bounce, and bounce, and bounce. So because it has more recoilability, it has more elasticity, it can store kinetic energy more efficiently. And so if you're just training like a cue ball, your first initial bounce will be powerful, but you're going to lose that power over and over and over again. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's the greatest analogy.
Yeah, and that kind of gets into what we were describing with like the different demands of football, and he's definitely going for. I like that last one we had, the twisted split squat. I might try to incorporate that kind of with those isometrics that I was showing earlier.
Yeah, they're okay. And, you know, like and Weck method's really big into those ideas, isoscellating ideas. Like so is functional patterns guy. You know, they're really big in like these sort of like twisting and snapping movements. But
I'll pull up some videos from them in future episodes, since those are other guys.
Now, just to address this video is not bad. You know, this is reactive strength training. You know, he's involving a proprioceptive element with the kettlebells and the elastic bands, so that creates chaos. You know, he's doing it one-footed. He is doing it on shoes, which I'm not a fan of. I think you should do it barefoot on a hard surface so you get the best neurological feedback possible. And I don't necessarily think throwing a bicep curl is 100% efficient. You know? But maybe it makes it more fun for them. You know, some of these guys, they like working like the aesthetic muscles, which is okay, I guess. You know, it's not too bad. So this guy's principles are better than what I usually see. I would say that he's trying to get into the more reactive side of things.
His videos are definitely interesting. I don't always want to do the things he's doing, but I'll sit there and watch for a few loops and try to understand why he's doing what he's doing.
So go film me another video, and I'll kind of give people like some secret sauce and how to look at an exercise to know if it's going to be as efficient as possible.
He's always has like multiple
forms of stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and turning the feet in, you know, he's got like that sort of thing, so that's kind of his thing.
Really
which now turning the feet in for something like this, here's another a constructive or maybe just plain out criticism, is that when you push your feet into those positions, you're creating a unnatural foot sequence. You know, because you don't just hold to the outside of your feet. Your outside of your feet is what catches initial contact, and then the whole forefoot gets involved within fractions of a second. It's like a very short window that outside foot contact is being placed. So I don't think it's very effective to just focus on that outside foot tension, because now you're neglecting all those other parts of the foot that are always involved with running, sprinting, cutting, jumping, all of that, right? And so,
you can see his big toes aren't engaged at all right now. They're
right.
Up
Yeah,
off the
there you
ground.
go. Yeah, so I don't necessarily think that's a very accurate foot placement. Now, these guys are trying to create strength through forms of foot tension, but this looks like someone who's in the gym too much. This looks like a trainer that's in the gym too often. They're not playing enough sports. They're not looking at enough sports film. They're not looking at the biomechanics of what the guys are going through on the field. And this is a really common thing I see as well with a lot of trainers, where they're trying to get really creative, which is fun. You know, it creates good content, it's great marketing, it catches people's attention. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can fall into this, you can sort of fall into this thing where the creativity overrides the purpose. Right? You know, and then you kind of get a little bit too, like, expressive. You know, and I have trouble with that too. Like, you know, whenever I try to create new ideas for people to try out, a lot of times I'm asking myself, okay, like, is this Like, is this going to give a good return on investment? Is this movement, if you put your time and energy, is it going to fix X for jujitsu, for boxing, for, getting rid of old man stiffness, right? So with this looks like a little bit too much creativity, not enough field work, not enough work in the sport with the athlete on the field, watching in slow motion what exactly their body is going through. And I'm not a big fan of those head harnesses. I feel like that's a ton of tension on the neck. That's a shit ton of tension on the neck, and that could be hard on your cervical spine over time. Yeah, so he's really about recoiling in. Yeah, I don't think that helps you generate more. Now, does that make you a more rigid, strong structure? Yes. But we're not trying to be rigid, strong structures out on the field. We're trying to be elastic like panthers. We're trying to be jaguars. Really, really hyper elastic, easily stretch and snap with force and speed. That's what the best guys on the field look like. Not like coiled in, he's like trying to make snakes. This is like how a snake strike works. You coil one big heavy power movement. But that's not how sports are. You need like several strikes over and over again, then changing position, then restriking over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Are my weird animal analogies making sense?
No, I like that. That's interesting. So yeah, the snake is just one launch.
One launch, and these guys, he's preparing them for just one launch. Which gives you which probably looks good for a combine, but that may not deliver the results you're looking for when it comes to winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know that you have to get running today, Quentin.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was cool. I'll find some more trainers. Anyone watching, send your videos. We'll add them to the queue as much as we have space for them. But again, that's Nervous System Training Podcast on Instagram or Nervous System Training Podcast at gmail.com, or leave your comments anywhere that you're watching this video here.
Cool. And can I say one more thing, Jake, before we close up? Now, I do want to address this because I know there's a ton of drama on the internet with other I get so much hate from other coaches on a daily basis criticizing my methodology. And I know we went through a lot of other guys' work and we kind of picked it apart and dissected it. I'm going to say this to any of you athletes or some of you coaches that are watching this. I do not think what you're doing is wrong at all. I think all forms of training are great. I really do. I just believe that there's different returns on investment for ways you can stimulate the body, simply based on what I've seen and what I've gone through with other systems compared to the Marinovich nervous system training system. And other athletes, I'm not saying that you have to do my system or you have to do Marinovich system or you can't do that. That's wrong and this is right. It's all working. But some things can produce a better result than others. So that's kind of what I'm trying to, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to bash anyone's business or take money away from anyone.
Yeah, your lens is efficiency for functional abilities, especially in the fight context.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet. Well, thanks, and to everyone, next week.
Yeah, see you next time.